none of these guys have been featured on any video games. What is this, 2015? So you're talking about the 2016 edition of, yeah. So you might have maybe a few players from each team that was around, right? And I'm flabbergasted. This is supposed to be a milestone. Something that people can kind of hang their hats on, right? Oh yeah, well this was a landmark decision by the federal courts. This was the first time that college athletes have been compensated. Well, I don't really agree with that. Because again, when you start talking about college basketball, and Coop, I know you're in the chat room right now, dude. If you have the ability, just find out when the last EA Sports college basketball came out for me. Because I got so much going on right now in the studio, I don't have time to look it up. But if you have time, Coop, because I'm just trying to figure this out. Because again, I think the last college basketball game might have came out like in the mid 2000s or something. I don't think it was even 2010, which again would mean that the kids that this would not be monumental when you start talking about college athletes being paid, right? Because if the game ended prior to 2012, right, the college basketball, or 2011, none of those kids are around at this point. And so I'm just like, again, I because I have spent money on these video games, college football, which just happens to be my first, my very first and favorite video. The college football, like I do that over Madden all the time. When I was working at a sports station and we would get video games for free, and they asked me, Rob, which one you want, Madden or college football? I'm taking college football all day. I don't care about Madden. And Coop just pointed out that EA Sports did the Dr. J versus Larry Bird back in the day. Yeah, I remember that, Coop. What was that? The Commodore 64, ColecoVision. What was that? Commodore 64? Or if you had like the old Apple joint. I bet you they got paid. Well, I know they got paid. But, here we are at a point where, again, we try to applaud folks for doing the right thing. And here's a situation where I definitely applaud Ed O'Bannon and everybody that joined in on this lawsuit. But at the end of the day, guess what, folks? You're not getting anything. And guess who still turns out to be the big winner in this whole thing? The NCAA, or as Mike likes to call them, the NCAA hoes, right? And EA Sports. They're still the big winners here. Because again, if you're listening, 2010, and Cooper's telling me that 2010 was the last NCAA hoops, and that's what I just said. The last NCAA hoops game was 2010, right? So again, this is not a milestone for current college athletes. This is is there even really a damn milestone? That's what at this point, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it even a milestone, the fact that you're going to pay the people that are actually about to get compensated are folks that are grown? You got some cats that are in the NFL or the CFL or the NBA or playing the D League or wherever. And again, the math that I did, the 250,000 college athletes that have been a part of this college football game over the last 20 years, I said that the total figure comes out to be about $240, $250. But see, once you add the college basketball players into it, then it comes down even more. So now you're talking about a situation where, the college football guys could have made $250, but now because the basketball is a part of it, now you might only get $150 or $125. So again, is this really a milestone? Is it really a milestone? A milestone to me would be if, they said, well, if you're featured on the cover of a video game and you're a college player, you get paid $50,000 or $100,000. I remember Tommy Frazier was on the cover of one of these college football games back right in the 90s. I think it might have been 95 when, what was that? Was it 95 Nebraska won their last championship? 95, I think it was, and he was on the cover, and I was all hyped up because, Tommy Frazier was my boy. He was dark-skinned like me. That boy was running. Boy, they had the option thing going down. And guess what? It was for free. And here I am saying this to you again. $60 million isn't enough. It just isn't enough. And so, hopefully, I don't know what's going to become of this whole thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, if they want to call it a milestone, then maybe it is. But when I start looking at these figures and I'm like, going back to 1993, you had the opportunity to take care of these kids. You could have gave them $1,000 when they were really kids. There would have been some kids that would have been around like all 4 years. I mean, that would have just been a select group. Well, not even a select group, but there would have been kids that would have been around 4 years. So, they would have came out of the gate making, they would have made $4,000. If they were in those top tier teams, they could have made $4,000 over a 4-year period, sign their likeness, and everybody could have been taken care of. But here we are, years later, 22 years later to be exact, from the original NCAA college football, Bill Walsh college football being released by EA Sports. And we're talking about players only making about $125 to $150 a piece as a part of a class action settlement where the federal courts ruled in a $60 million favor settlement, if you will, for these guys that have filed these lawsuits. And so again, it kind of is what it is at this point. But it's just kind of eye opening when I start going through and doing the math and looking at these numbers and how EA Sports has been able to sell almost 1 million copies of a video game in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, they made $35,000 on a video game. But you want me to think that a $60 million settlement is enough? I mean, I could just look. If I just did $35 million, and I just said, okay, well, the 2012 made $35 million. So how much did the 2013 make, or the 2011, the 2010? I mean, so when you start really adding this stuff up, I mean, you start talking about, I guess it would be close to $1 billion, right? I mean, I know that back in 1993, I know that they did not sell 700,000 copies in the first 2 weeks of Bill Walsh college football, right? But just say if they did, right? And you take $35 million and you multiply that times 20, that's $700 million. Now, I don't think college football has generated $700 million for EA Sports based on the game pricing and all of that. But there's a good chance that it is definitely that is definitely generated close to $500 million, maybe a little less. But y'all want me to think the $60 million is enough? Again, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that has this, that has this feeling about this whole situation. Again, great story, but the funds just don't match up. And I guess that's why I've been able to sit here and talk about this for an hour, because I am so damn confused. It just really kind of baffles me. That people consider this to be this big time landmark decision. I mean, no, this is not Wade versus Roe. This is, I mean, it's, again, kids that play college football right now get paid more than $125, $150 for an autograph, even though they're not supposed to do it. And so what does this say for EA moving forward if they are able to the rebirth this NCAA college football game again? What is it now that, okay, well, we were able to get away with giving these former players $125 or $150 for their likeness, so that's what we're going to do now in order to keep the game moving forward? Is that what ends up happening? Because if that's the case, again, who ends up winning? It's, pimpery is still paying, the right pimps, that is. So, again, I just feel a certain kind of way about this, because I think that at the end of the day, people are still being robbed, people have still been manipulated, and the very people that sit at the top, the NCAA, just continue, because again, now remember, none of these figures that I gave you ever said how much the NCAA got as a whole. It broke down the number of money the minimum that teams got. And I just clearly believe that if in what year was that? In 2013, the final year of the EA game, if Wisconsin made $143,000, which was above the $78,000 minimum, I clearly believe that a team like the University of Florida, the University of Georgia, maybe Auburn, so some of these other teams that were doing really well around that time, I have to believe that they made more than $143,000, and I have to believe that they had more than enough resources to be able to take care of these kids and legitimately, legally, and screw that when you play NCAA football or NCAA athletics that you don't own your own likeness. Screw that. That's really what I want to say. Just screw it. But anyway, man. Anyway, we're coming up on the final few minutes of this hour. And, I'm sorry. Some of this stuff, it's a rare occasion that I just get on my soapbox and just go. But when the math doesn't add up, and that's exactly what's happening in this situation right here, is that the math is not adding up. There is no way that you could tell me. Now, see, what really should have happened, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, just my opinion. What should have happened is that there should have been a separate lawsuit, I think. There should have been a lawsuit for on behalf of the college football side, and then on the basketball side. Because I have to believe that the football might have been the tipping point when you talk about being able to have the basketball players included, even though Ed O'Bannon is the one that was kind of at the forefront of this lawsuit. But the reason I say that is because this college football brand has been around since 1993. And as I mentioned, it was originally branded Bill Walsh College Football into its later name of NCAA Football 2011, 2012, 2013. Because I think that these college players, the football especially, I think that they're due more money than what they're going to receive. Just because now you've added in these, because the settlement is kind of merged between football and basketball. And you might have some guys that say, you know what, I don't need $125 or $150, and they might not even sign into they might not even put their names on the lawsuit. But they have until the end of the month to get their names on there so that they could be a part of the settlement. All right, so that's that, and we'll just keep following along with that story and see what ends up happening. All right, so coming up on the other side, the second hour of the show, we will talk about a few things. We have David West, his deal. We talked about that a few weeks ago, and there have been some new revelations when it comes to that deal, and it might not be as dumb as we originally said. Plus, Brett Favre was back at Lambeau over the weekend.